Thank you, Nina and Ricky. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for NET25 World News. On tonight's headlines, President Xi Jinping is in Vietnam, a pivotal stop on his Southeast Asian tour, as China works to strengthen economic ties amidst rising trade tensions with the U.S. U.S. President Donald Trump's exemption for smartphones, computers, and other electronics from China from reciprocal tariffs may be about to change again. Why? Because Trump is now saying his announcement Friday is not a tariff exception and promises more details today.
He's saying they're exempt from the reciprocal tariffs, but they're included in the semiconductor tariffs, which are coming in probably a month or two.
Horrifying report from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Children, including toddlers, are being subjected to widespread sexual violence.
During the most intense phase of this year's conflict in Eastern DRC, a child was raped every 30 minutes.
And the news starts now. President Xi Jinping is in Vietnam, a pivotal stop on his Southeast Asian tour, as China works to strengthen economic ties amidst rising trade tensions with the U.S. The focus? Securing supply chains and boosting trade in a region caught in the crossfire of global tariffs. President Xi is calling for tighter cooperation with Vietnam, particularly in manufacturing and supply chains, as both nations face significant U.S. tariffs. He's also pushing for collaboration in cutting-edge sectors like artificial intelligence and green technology. Vietnam, a key manufacturing hub, finds itself balancing heavy reliance on Chinese imports with its crucial export market to the U.S. This delicate balance is further complicated by U.S. pressure on Vietnam to ensure goods labeled "Made in Vietnam" truly add value within the country. A major focus of Xi's visit is infrastructure, with discussions centering on new rail links, potentially financed by Chinese loans. Around 40 agreements are expected to be signed. Adding to the intrigue, China's COMAC aircraft is making a push into the Vietnamese market. A memorandum of understanding has been signed with Vietjet, hinting at potential aircraft leasing deals. And this move is seen as a crucial step for COMAC as it seeks international buyers. However, the relationship isn't without challenges. Tensions over the South China Sea and Vietnam's efforts to comply with U.S. trade demands, including restrictions on some Chinese goods and the introduction of Starlink satellite services, could create friction. Xi's trip also includes stops in Malaysia and Cambodia, both facing their own U.S. tariff challenges, highlighting the complex economic landscape in Southeast Asia. Xi's visit underscores China's strategic push to solidify its influence in Southeast Asia as global trade dynamics shift, and these nations are navigating a complex web of economic and political pressures. A last-minute surge in Chinese exports marked March as factories race to beat new U.S. tariffs. But the trade war is casting a long shadow, threatening to derail China's economic growth. Here's the report.
Chinese trade felt the effects of Donald Trump's tariffs even before the levies kicked in. Figures out Monday showed exports surged over 12% on the year in March. That was around 3 times the increase forecast by analysts. The numbers suggest factories were rushing out shipments before the tariffs took effect. However, the figures could now plunge, with China facing levies of up to 145% on most shipments to the US. One economist told Reuters it could be years before the export numbers return to the level seen in March. Monday's figures also pointed to weak domestic demand in China, with imports falling 4.3%, or more than double the decline that was forecast. That means policymakers could struggle to make up for any downturn sparked by a drop in exports. Economists at Goldman Sachs and Citi have already cut their growth forecasts for China as a result of the trade turmoil. One market expert said a plunge in soybean imports, much of which come from the US, suggested state firms in China were already shunning American produce. Overall, Beijing's trade surplus with the US rose to almost $77 billion during the first quarter. That's likely to keep the country in Trump's sights, given that closing the gap is at the top of his agenda. With China vowing to fight US tariffs to the end, Monday's figures don't bode well for any easing in tensions.
U.S. President Donald Trump's exemption for smartphones, computers, and other electronics from China from reciprocal tariffs may be about to change again. Why? Because Trump is now saying his announcement Friday is not a tariff exception and promises more details today. Here's Thomas I. Likeness for more.
The chaotic tariff rollout changes on an almost daily basis. Last week, Trump slapped a 145% reciprocal tariff on all imports from China. But by Friday, he granted an exemption to electronics such as cell phones, laptops, computers, semiconductors, and the like. Then, on Sunday, Trump posted on his Truth Social platform that more changes are on the way. This time he's saying his announcement Friday is not a tariff exception. He says electronic products from China are still subject to the 20% fentanyl tariffs, and he says they will be moving to what he is calling a different tariff bucket. The president said, "Stay tuned for more details."
I'll give you that answer on Monday. We'll be very specific.
Meanwhile, U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick echoed that on a Sunday morning news program. He says the tariff relief on electronics is only temporary.
So this is not like a permanent sort of exemption. He's just clarifying that these are not available to be negotiated away by countries. These are things that are national security that we need to be made in America.
Lutnick says semiconductors and pharmaceuticals from China will be assessed a separate tariff. He says the administration is working on a new policy for those goods, which he says should be American-made. The confusion and flip-flops over what will be tariffed and how much the surcharge will be has created wild swings in the stock market. Chris Konstantinos of the Riverfront Investment Group says this climate of chaos hurts the ability of businesses to plan or invest.
The uncertainty that this sows, not just for consumers, but also for businesses trying to make decisions in real time about hiring and CapEx and investing in high RRR potential projects, but which take capital up front. All of these types of decisions are having to be put on hold because of this low visibility environment.
Money markets are feeling it as well. The uncertainty is weakening the American dollar, something Commerce Secretary Lutnick says he's not worried about.
I am not concerned about it. We are focused on our tariff policy. We are focused. We have so many countries coming in to negotiate with us. The president has given us the ability, let's go get these great deals done. And we're on it, and the president's on it, and we're really, really focused on delivering the best thing for the American people.
So again, as America begins another week, we watch for more changes in its trade policy and how those changes will affect both the domestic and global economies. Thomas I. Likeness, NET25 World News.
In other news tonight, a year's worth of rain fell in just 2 hours, turning the normally arid landscape of Spain's Lanzarote island into a muddy disaster zone. We have the latest on the state of emergency declared on the popular tourist destination. Lovely Apple Joyce Fabros reports.
Spain's Lanzarote island experienced severe flooding on Saturday, April 12, 2025, after an intense 2-hour rainstorm delivered approximately 6 centimeters or 2.4 inches of rain, equivalent to a year's worth of rainfall in some areas. The deluge transformed roads into muddy rivers, inundated homes, and overwhelmed drainage systems, particularly affecting the towns of Arrecife, Costa Teguise, and Tahiche. Local authorities declared a state of emergency as emergency services responded to over 300 calls overnight, addressing flooded homes, submerged vehicles, and impassable roads. In Arrecife and Teguise alone, 222 incidents were reported, including flooding in garages, basements, and youth center. Despite the extensive damage, no injuries have been reported. The flooding also disrupted transportation, with several roads closed due to high water levels and flights cancelled or diverted. The situation was exacerbated by earlier heavy rainfall from Storm Olivier earlier in the week. Authorities have since deactivated the emergency status but continue to advise residents to avoid unnecessary travel as cleanup efforts proceed. Reporting from Barcelona, Spain, this is Lovely Applejace Fabros for NET25 World News. Back to you, Alma.
President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, recently traveled to Russia to meet with President Vladimir Putin. Now, the U.S. is urging Russia to accept a long-term ceasefire agreement in Ukraine. Take a look. On Truth Social this past Friday, President Trump wrote, "Russia has to get moving. Too many people are dying." Meanwhile, in Brussels, European nations have pledged billions in additional military aid to Ukraine. The chaotic tariff and now political rollout has left many wondering, how close are we to a ceasefire? President Trump said he's pissed off with Putin, using stronger language than that, and made it clear that the current meeting underscores his frustration with Russia's slow progress. It's also worth noting that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth didn't attend the meeting in person, but participated via video conference. European ministers, however, painted a bleaker picture. According to them, peace is out of reach. In response to that grim outlook, the EU announced $23 billion in military funding.
And the new pledges of military aid announced today through the UDCG total over 21 billion euros. A record boost in military funding for Ukraine, and we're also surging that support to the frontline fight.
Germany, for instance, pledged to provide air defense systems and Patriot missile systems.
First of all, there is the increasingly important area of air defense. We are talking about 4 more IRIS-T systems plus the 300 missiles. We are talking about 120 manpads. That is, ground-based air defense systems. We're talking about 300 reconnaissance drones initially, 25 more Marder infantry fighting vehicles, 15 Leopard main battle tanks, 14 artillery systems, 100 ground surveillance radars, and initially another 100,000 rounds of artillery ammunition. Our reliable support is therefore continuing, and, what's more, and this is very typical, as of yesterday I can announce that in the past few days, we have also been able to provide 30 additional Patriot guided missiles from our own stocks for the Patriot systems that we have already delivered to Ukraine.
In a twist, the Trump administration, along with Secretary Hegseth, has been urging European allies to take the lead in supporting Ukraine. Meanwhile, the Russians have been pounding Ukrainian positions with no let-up at all, and as one official noted, Putin is even shifting the narrative by declaring not only Ukrainian President Zelensky, but his entire government illegitimate.
Что гражданские органы власти, они сегодня на самом деле в соответствии с Конституцией Украины не являются законными, выборы-то не были проведены там президентом, а Конституция устроена так, что все назначаются президентом, в том числе региональные органы власти, губернатор назначается и так далее. Если он сам нелегитимный, то все остальные тоже. Так вот, в условиях этой нелегитимности фактической неонацистские формирования получают дополнительное оружие и рекрутируют свои ряды новых людей. Это к чему приводит, может привести? Что фактическая власть находится в их руках. А это значит, в свою очередь, что и так-то непонятно, с кем подписывать какие документы. И так-то непонятно, какую силу они имеют, потому что завтра придут другие руководители, которые пройдут через выборы и скажут, ну, кто там подписывал, мы не знаем, до свидания. Но даже дело не в этом, а дело в том, что вот эти неонацистские формирования, такие как Азов, а там есть и другие, они фактически начинают руководить страной. Правда, и возникает вопрос, а как быть-то, как с ними вести переговоры?
There might be a breakthrough because Witkoff has gone to Russia in search of common ground with Putin, yet at this point it feels a long way off.
So we're going to the fight, and we have lots of fights going around the world. And I think we have a lot of good news coming soon about some of those fights, and we'll see how it goes. But it's been an interesting weekend anyway. It's some pretty good news coming on some of the conflicts.
Are there other talks that are going well in addition to your end?
There are other talks going well. I think Ukraine, Russia might be going okay, and you're going to be finding out pretty soon. You know, there's a point at which you just have to either put up or shut up, and we'll see what happens. But I think it's going fine.
The international community is watching closely for the next move. Police in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania have arrested a 38-year-old man believed to be responsible for setting fire to the state governor mansion. The blaze caused extensive damage to the residence and forced Governor Josh Shapiro and his family to quickly evacuate the home. Arlene Ocampo reports.
Flames forced the evacuation of Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, his wife, 4 children, and another family member who had celebrated Passover with them on Saturday. Shapiro says the fire broke out early Sunday morning.
At approximately 2 o'clock in the morning, while my family and I were asleep upstairs here at the governor's residence, one of the state troopers assigned to our detail banged on our door, woke us up and told us we had an emergency and needed to leave immediately. Together, we secured all of our children, our 2 dogs, our family that was staying with us, and the troopers safely evacuated us from the governor's residence.
Pennsylvania State Police Lieutenant Colonel George Bivens says police have arrested a 38-year-old man identified as Cody Balmer. He says Balmer got over a fence around the governor's residence.
At approximately 2 o'clock in the morning, while my family and I were asleep upstairs here at the governor's residence, one of the state troopers assigned to our detail banged on our door, woke us up and told us we had an emergency and needed to leave immediately. Together, we secured all of our children, our 2 dogs, our family that was staying with us, and the troopers safely evacuated us from the governor's residence.
Bivens says Balmer had been in the house less than a minute. Dauphin County District Attorney Francis Chardot says Balmer will face several charges.
He actively evaded troopers who were here to secure the residence, even while they were searching for him on the property. While they were searching is when he attacked at the residence, broke in and set the fires.
The charges will include attempted murder, terrorism, aggravated arson, and aggravated assault against an enumerated person. These are all very serious charges. As with any charges, the defendant is presumed innocent.
Shapiro says the attack had been targeted, but he does not know the motive. And he condemned violence that he says is becoming all too frequent.
This kind of violence is becoming far too common in our society. And I don't give a damn if it's coming from one particular side or the other, directed at one particular party or another, or one particular person or another. It is not okay. And it has to stop.
Shapiro says he will continue his work for Pennsylvania without fear. He adds he refuses to be trapped by the bondage that someone attempts to put on him by attacking him. Arlene Ocampo for NET25 World News.
Horrifying report from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Children, including toddlers, are being subjected to widespread sexual violence. The UN Children's Agency, or UNICEF, says in the first 2 months of this year alone, nearly a third of the 10,000 recorded cases of rape and sexual violence in eastern Congo involved children.
UNICEF said this morning that reports from child protection colleagues on the ground show children make up between 35 and 45% of the nearly 10,000 cases of rape and sexual violence reported to protection actors in January and February of this year, 10,000 cases. This UNICEF added means that during the most intense phase of the conflict in the east part of the DRC, a child was raped every 30 minutes.
And this crisis is unfolding amidst the M23 rebel offensive.
During the most intense phase of this year's conflict in eastern DRC, a child was raped every 30 minutes. We're not talking about isolated incidents. We are talking about a systematic crisis. We are seeing survivors as young as toddlers. It's a weapon of war and a deliberate tactic of terror, and it destroys families and communities. Now, the fact that this may just be the tip of the iceberg, hidden beneath layers of fear and stigma and insecurity, should shake us to the core. Early reports show that children make up between 35 to 45% of the nearly 10,000 cases of rape and sexual violence reported to protection actors in just January and February of this year.
Ecuador's presidential election results are being challenged despite a landslide victory declared for incumbent Daniel Noboa. His leftist rival, Luisa Gonzalez, is alleging electoral fraud and demanding a recount.
Ecuador's National Election Council on Sunday declared incumbent Daniel Noboa the winner of the country's presidential race. But leftist rival Luisa Gonzalez told supporters that she rejects the results and will demand a recount, calling it electoral fraud. Ahead of the election, the candidates had urged polling places observers to guard against fraud. The results came as a surprise to many after February's first round vote, when Noboa led Gonzalez by less than 17,000 votes. But with 92% of votes counted on Sunday, Noboa led with a margin of over 1 million votes. 37-year-old business heir Noboa was elected in 2023 only to serve out the remainder of his predecessor's mandate. He had pledged to continue efforts to fight drug gangs and boost the struggling economy. His electoral strategy also focused on distributing payouts to oil spill victims and small businesses hit by flooding. On Sunday, he celebrated his landslide victory.
This event has been historic. The victory has also been historic. A victory of more than 10 points, a victory of more than 1 million votes, where there is no doubt who the winner is, and that has been based on perseverance, struggle, work of each of the members of this team, of the team that seeks this new Ecuador.
Meanwhile, Gonzalez expressed disbelief over the outcome.
I refuse to believe people who prefer lies over truth, violence over peace and unity. I absolutely refuse to believe something like that. And that is why we all the people who have united against violence, against lies, are going to request a recount and for the polls to be opened.
The head of the National Electoral Council confirmed Noboa's win in a statement to the press and said that the national tally showed an irreversible trend. Bonds, which were still pricing probability of a return to socialist policies, were expected to rally on a Noboa victory. But Gonzalez's challenge could hinder or mute that market reaction.
A diplomatic row is brewing after a British member of parliament was denied entry to Hong Kong. Take a look. The UK's foreign minister is demanding answers from both Hong Kong and Beijing. Opposition MP Vera Hubhouse says she was turned away at Hong Kong's border, the first British parliamentarian to be denied entry since the 1997 handover. The incident has triggered strong reactions from the UK government. Foreign Minister David Lammy released a statement saying it's deeply concerning to hear that an MP on a personal trip has been refused entry to Hong Kong. We will urgently raise this with the authorities in Hong Kong and Beijing to demand an explanation. Hubhouse, who traveled to Hong Kong to visit her newborn grandson and son, expressed her shock and frustration. She stated on social media, "Authorities gave me no explanation for this cruel and upsetting blow." Speaking to Sunday Times, Hubhouse revealed she has been a vocal critic of China's human rights record, particularly concerning Hong Kong, Xinjiang, Tibet, and its stance on Taiwan and the South China Sea. As of now, Hong Kong Security Bureau, immigration authorities, and the Chinese Embassy in London have offered no immediate comment. The UK government is pressing for answers, raising questions about Hong Kong's autonomy and the treatment of visiting lawmakers. And the news continues here on NET25. We'll be right back. With their win over the Houston Rockets, the Los Angeles Lakers clinched the third spot in the Western Conference and now shift their sights to focus on another run at the title. Alan and Eva Basilaje with a report.
It's Lakers versus the Houston Rockets for LA's last home game of the regular season.
Ahead of tip-off, fans flocked to an appreciation event and immersed themselves in all things Lakers before the purple and gold enter playoffs.
I think the best part of this season's been since Luka joined the team, they've really gone uphill.
I feel like Luka's our new Kobe here in LA. His tribute made me cry, made my daughter cry, and I'm just excited, and I feel like we're gonna win the championship this year.
I think the Lakers in the playoffs need to just definitely keep the defense intensity up, play hard, shoot the threes, to be honest, let Luka and Austin kind of control the ball, let LeBron kind of just float, do his thing, and he'll be a lot more productive. We'll be good, we'll be solid.
I think it's get the LeBron, Austin Reeves, and Luka more tight, train harder. With the team will be unstoppable.
And unstoppable really was a fitting description, as the Lakers gave the Rockets a sound walloping. For their part, Houston could only hang with LA for the first 8 minutes of quarter number 1, after which it was all Lakers. Los Angeles defeats Houston 140-109, thanks in large part to the trio of LeBron, Luka, and Austin.
This was before the game tonight, actually. Me and Brian was talking about how when players don't really know what they're going to do, they're tough to guard. And I kind of looked at him and was like, half the time I have no idea what I'm about to do. It just happens.
Austin just said that he thinks that the Lakers could win a championship. You've obviously taken a team to the finals last season. What do you think is the Lakers' ceiling?
Yeah, obviously. That's got to be our only goal, and that's our only goal. I think we have the team to do it. When everybody's locked in, we're a hard team to beat, so that's our goal.
The always tough Western Conference makes reaching the NBA Finals a challenging prospect for any team.
But with the victory over Houston, LA shows signs that they're primed and ready to make a serious charge in the postseason.
Reporting from the Crypto.com Arena in Los Angeles, California, Eva and Alan for NET25 World News.
And finally, a major international event making waves across the globe, and the highly anticipated World Expo 2025 in Osaka, Japan, officially opened its doors to the public, drawing massive crowds eager to experience the future of innovation, sustainability, and global collaboration. Take a look. The 6-month-long event is being held on Umeshima Island in Osaka Bay and is expected to attract over 28 million visitors from around the world. With the theme Designing Future Society for Our Lives, Expo 2025 brings together 158 nations and regions to address some of the world's most pressing challenges, ranging from climate change to advancements in healthcare. The public opening was preceded by a grand ribbon-cutting ceremony. Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, Emperor Naruhito, and other dignitaries were in attendance. Prime Minister Ishiba highlighted the importance of global unity during his speech.
The world, having overcome the COVID-19 pandemic, is now facing various crises of division. In such times, it is of great significance for people from around the world to come together, reflect on the meaning of life, and engage with cutting-edge technologies, diverse perspectives, and different cultures.
The Expo grounds feature a variety of attractions, including the Grand Ring, a stunning 2-kilometer wooden structure housing national pavilions. Visitors can explore futuristic innovations. Each country's pavilion offers its own unique take on innovation and culture. The USA Pavilion showcases a moon rock from NASA's Apollo missions.
We're at a moment right now where we are working on the Artemis missions, and the Artemis missions are going to be heading back to the moon. So There's a wonderful serendipity between 1970 in Osaka when we were going to the moon, and of course the first lunar sample that was here, but also today. You know, innovation really, so much happens in the world of aerospace and those technologies. So we are going back to the moon. So it was a great way to do that and to bring those concepts and the ideas forward.
And it's not just about technology. Expo 2025 is also a feast for the senses. Visitors can enjoy global cuisines alongside Japanese favorites like takoyaki and ramen while soaking in live performances and cultural parades from around the world. Expo 2025 runs until October 13th. And with that, we end tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on NET25, I'm Alma Angeles. Thank you all for joining us. Good night.